As many of you probably don't know, I have a podcast with my dad, and the latest episode was uploaded just yesterday, and in the episode we talked a little bit about AI near the end because we were talking about perhaps him and I collaborating on a book together, and he asked like, wait, was this in the episode? Maybe it's not. It wasn't. Maybe it wasn't in the episode. But anyway, we talked about the book, potentially writing it together, and then kind of division of work. We were kind of discussing that. So my dad knows that I'm very anti AI, but he had a different opinion about it, and he shared some things that I think were kind of worth talking about in this YouTube channel as well. So his idea was that now, like, AI is like a car. Sure, you can be an environmentalist and then, you could argue that cars pollute, but then if you need to get somewhere, you're still gonna ride a car, right? So if you're, for example, I live in California and, I need to go to New York City and I'm walking for the environment, that's silly. And so his argument is that soon, like, AI is already kind of like that. And, that there's gonna be such a big difference between the people who use it and don't use it. And that is somehow exactly my point as well. The gap between the people who use AI and the people who don't use AI is going to be really big, but I think in the opposite direction where he's talking about. So let's explore this topic a little bit more in depth. So, first of all, why am I so against AI? I am personally against AI, environmental reasons and such, like, yes, of course. But I'm against AI because it kind of robs us of the opportunity to experience, learn, and study about ourselves, the how we like to use our mind, how we interact with things. It robs us of the opportunity to kind of like experience that ourselves. But the thing is, um, we don't need to go out and experience everything, right? So, for example, I'm a software engineer, um, life coach, gamer. I'm all these things. So I have no business doing taxes. So that's why I hire an accountant, right? And my accountant wants me to, prepare some, Excel sheets and such. Now, for that kind of stuff, could I go into, Google Sheets and then just research how I do Excel and then could I learn accounting? Sure. But in the grand span of things, right? It right now at this moment, me learning how to do accounting isn't really going to pay off dividends in the present right now when I have more pressing needs. So it's totally fine for me to kind of, hey, you know what? Let me use AI for this. So I feed it my bank statement and then I ask it to, prepare a summary for it. Sure. I'm not arguing that there aren't those use cases, but let's think about it with the car. The car gets us somewhere, right? So before people walked, and then the people rode things, and then like horses, and then people, invented cars. And Henry Ford, maybe this is a misquote, but famously said, if you asked what people would have wanted, they would have said they wanted a faster horse. But the invention of a car is kind of like a different game changer, right? So in that sense, what my dad says kind of has a point. So before we used to really struggle with these things, and we used to hire people, and we used to either hire people or when we didn't have the money, we used to stress about going to the library, learn all these things, and then so it sucked. But then now we with just a few typing now you with the prompt now you get like an end result that looks really good. So in that sense, like Henry Ford maybe right now at this state would have said maybe people wanted a better librarian, right? Uh, just like how people might have wanted faster horses back then, and then you have cars. So people wanted better librarians, people wanted better teachers, but then now you have this AI thing, and then now it's a game changer. So while there are parallels to that, I think the important thing is cars deprive us of the experience of slowing down to walk by and notice these things and look at how the seasons change, how my neighborhood, changes over the, last few weeks, and then how my neighbor, got a haircut and things like that. But it's not all bad because by getting to the destination quickly, we get to spend time in the destination for a little bit more, right? So if I'm driving to see my parents, I could walk to my parents and then visit them for 15 minutes and then walk all the way back home to come back home. Or I could ride the car, visit them, spend a nice day with them, and then come back home. So I'm not arguing one is unilaterally bad and one is unilaterally good. But cars kind of deprive us of that kind of slow moments, right? Now, the thing is, we need to start talking about side effects of things. So, cars have the side effect. Cars are good because they're fast, but they have the side effect of accidents. When you walk into somebody, it's not fatal. But when you walk into a car or a car drives into you, it's very likely that it's going to be fatal. Moreover, cars had the side effect of emissions. Cars have the side effect of insurance. Cars have the side effect of so many different things that are deeply intertwined with owning a car, which is why I really dislike owning a car, right? And another side effect of owning a car that I think that is really pronounced in the modern days is our reluctance to walk. Our reluctance to walk to places. When I was in, when I was working in corporate, we car shared to go to a restaurant that's like 15 minutes walking distance. And I'm sure there are more extreme examples of this, how people just generally, don't favor cars, especially in the United States of America. Sidewalks are kind of designed to suck because why? The infrastructure heavily favors cars. So just like this leads to multiple health effects of people not getting enough exercise and things like that, right? So now, what do we have as a side effect of having access to these tools? So I mean, I'm not going to argue that it's not nice, like to have everything in my convenience. That is nice for sure. But now that that's nice, what am I likely to do? I am going to ask it for some other things. Why? Because I got the taste of it. I got the taste of typing something and then getting a result that's like super quick and it looks really good. So now I am more liable in the future to rely on it more and more, just like owning a car. But cars come with payments and these giant checks, but then, AI doesn't even charge you if you're on the free tier or something, right? So this kind of mechanism is what really sets us down on a path of depriving ourselves of our agency. And it's kind of timely appropriate too, because the trailer for Toy Story 5, which I think is ridiculous, but we'll talk about that maybe some other time. But Toy Story 5 is about like iPads versus toys, right? So as kids play with digital screens, kids interact less and less with toys. My opinion is that yeah, it's kind of like iPad for adults, especially the, people who are around my parents' age. They ask the AI things because they feel guilty, they feel bad, they feel stupid about asking their children. And then because, I'm guilty of this too. Like when you ask children about, hey, how does this work? They're like, oh my God, I explained this to you so many times and blah, 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 right? So it's already robbing us of the conversations that we would be having if it weren't for AI, right? So the more and more and more we, talk, we confide in it, and the more kind of like attachment we have over it, the more likely we are going to rely on other people, and the more likely, I mean, the less likely we're going to rely on other people and talk to other people, right? Now, the thing is, now this leads to an interesting side effect. Number one, when you ask it sufficiently difficult problems, what a lot of people don't recognize is that it's not even that good. So in the earlier example of the tax, right? So I actually did give it some, bank statements, but then because I'm consulting for a local construction company because they want to be more technically up to date. So I'm doing a little bit of freelance consulting work, and the CEO of that company wants to use AI, so they asked me to kind of research some AI options, which I did. Now, so what's a good sample that I can try? Like, because they're a company dealing with numbers, so I figured I'd put in some PDFs. So it's really simple. It's just like adding a bunch of numbers. But I'm looking at my Excel sheet, which already has the sum, and then the sum that's outputted by whatever AI agent I used at the time was different. So I'm like, how did you arrive at this? And it said, oh, my mistake. You're right. The correct number is what you have on your Excel sheet. But that doesn't really cut it for me, right? Because I'm just one person, dealing with this kind of trivial stuff. But then what if the person who contracted me is relying on AI, and then it bills the customer a wrong amount? That's a really big liability. So I'm like trying to understand it. Hey, why did you say this? Like, I get that it's wrong, but tell me what you saw. What is it that led you to have this sum instead? And this is a really frustrating part. It just kind of declined to answer. It's like, no, I just messed up, and that's it. You're right. The correct number is in the Excel sheet. And I asked it again. No, I get that right number is in the Excel, but I want to know how you arrived at your original answer. I want to understand it. And it said, no, it's just a simple mistake. I'm like, all right. So it's not just that. The more you look into the output, the more you see that it's really prone to errors. And you have to give it explicit instructions on when to not hallucinate. But then the more you talk with it, the more the context kind of mix and mingle, right? So in the end, it's the appeal is that it's good for trivial things, but the tendency of the human mind is to want to rely on it more and more. And then when you go at it, when you pass a certain threshold, it's actually less useful because you have to double check everything that it does, which is just kind of defeats the point of having this accessible tool, right? Moreover, so that's the one interesting side effect. And the second interesting side effect is, so is it really better than people? Like, I saw an interesting Instagram post from this account called Death to Stock recently, and it's showcasing how artists are developing new art style that can't be replicated by AI. So a lot of the artists and the designers, they're relying more on organic lines instead of manufactured straight lines, and they're relying a lot more on the collagic effects like layered effects because AI can't really emulate it right now. But the thing is, will AI catch up to it? Maybe, sure. But then what will the human artists do? They're gonna develop a new style that's again won't be emulated by AI. So it's always gonna be this cat and mouse thing, and like AI can generate art, AI can generate new artifacts. But then in the end, what do people really want to create? They want to create something that's human-like. So all the image generators and the video generators, they want to make it look as realistic as possible, right? So um in the end, humans will always be more human, and AI is always gonna play catch up. So there's always going to be lagging. Now, that leads us to like the third interesting side effect. So much of scams are already using AI. And I'm not just explicitly talking about the cases where like I impersonate somebody's voice and then you know, try to scam people's like families. Like, oh, I'm, mom, I'm this, but then, I don't have any money, so can you like give me money, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even just talking about that. Like, a lot of companies, they are overcharging customers because they have this new AI feature that nobody ever knows what it uses, right? So any company can like, like the person who, contracted me, they could very well get into a contract with somebody who doesn't know anything but claims to, use AI. So, and I think that's sort of on the borderline of scam, right? So, for this kind of trivial good of certain conveniences, I think the dividends just don't make sense. The ROI doesn't make any sense to me. So to me, it's at first it's like, oh man, I really want to use AI, but then like, oh, but I can't because of my principles. And at first, I will admit, at first it was a little bit of like that. But the more I learn about AI and the more I use it, the more I'm genuinely uninterested in using it because it just kind of isn't good. But the thing is, I don't actively code anymore. So I know that there are use cases for code that's really good. And to be completely honest with you, um, AI has reduced the technical hurdle for a lot of technical things. And I think that is a good thing. That democratization of technology and certain features, I think that's a good thing to have for sure. But I think the side effects ultimately don't make it all that worth it. Now, but world had cars, we still do, right? So, am I arguing against something pointless? Like AI is already here to take over the world. Am I trying to, form a consensus to like stop, not use AI and let's go back to the pre-world AI? I also think that's unrealistic. But I walk a lot more than before, and when I have to buy a new phone, I like to go back a few generations. I don't buy the latest phones anymore. So while everybody else in this world can live however they want, it doesn't stop me from being the person who I want to be as a responsible citizen of the earth. So I think the more that people have this kind of principle, instead of going to the easy, route of thinking about doom, oh, everything's fucked anyway, so let's just like, I don't know, like let's just drown toilet paper down the drain and who cares? Instead of thinking like that, other people can do it. Sure, I don't have control over that. But just me, even if it's just me, I'm going to pick up the trash. I'm going to conserve water. I'm going to do the things that I want to do to make a better earth. And I think ultimately it's about hopefully getting you to think about that decision. And if that decision to you is like, I'm going to fucking use AI and who cares what you say? I have no problem with that. I have no problem with my dad using AI. So it's just a personal preference, and I'm just kind of here to elaborate on my personal experience. The last thing I want to elaborate, I think I already mentioned this once in a previous video, is that AI is appealing because we don't value the work that's involved in going to the library, in researching, in learning all of these things. When you look at something that's worthwhile, right? When you look at a painting that's like worth your time, when you look at a movie that's worth your time, when you listen to a song that really moves your heart, study the origins of that piece of art and you will find that it has so many different influences. And those influences don't come from just single place. Like a lot of art is a culmination of the artist's entire life. So what's a really timely example of this? K-pop Demon Hunters, right? K-pop Demon Hunters, Golden, and this is what it sounds like. All the songs that are written by EJ comes from her entire life of being a trainee at a K-pop, prominent K-pop producer. And then ultimately her failure to become a K-pop idol and transitioning into songwriting, but then still holding on to this like idea of wanting to be like a successful musician on the big stages. All of that is what ultimately transpires into a work of art like K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm not arguing that it's like the apex of art form, but look at any kind of art and you will see that it comes from a culmination of experiences that are so heartfelt, and not all of those middle points where you get to the destination you can call successes. But ultimately, nobody can argue that it's a worthless endeavor. So I would like for you to value your life more. I would like for you to value your experiences more. And That's sort of my argument. When you value your life, when you value your existence, when you value your brain, when you value your mind, you are going to have less of a reason to rely on something that kind of automates life, that kind of shortens life. I don't want that. I want to experience my life. Like that Adam Sandler movie, Click. I don't want to just click a remote and then have all the difficult parts of my life just fast forward. I want to live through those difficult moments because that's what ultimately makes my life my life.